Purpose is the seed of all action. Until you discover the reason for your existence, your movement will always be random, reactionary, and often reckless. You'll find yourself busy but not effective, moving but not progressing, doing things but not fulfilling anything. Purpose gives direction to your steps. It gives clarity to your choices. It adds weight to your yes and meaning to your no. When I was a young boy growing up in the Bahamas, I remember standing by the water's edge, watching fishermen return from the sea. Some came back with nets full, others came back with nothing. But I noticed something. The ones who knew where to cast their nets always came back with results. The sea was the same, the boats were similar, but one had direction and the other had distraction. That's how life is. Without purpose, you're casting your energy into empty waters. I used to wonder why so many people with talent, education, and opportunity end up unfulfilled. Why do some people spend 40 years in a job, retire with a watch, and die with regret? Because they never located purpose. And if you don't know your purpose, you become vulnerable to everyone else's agenda. People will hire you to build their vision while you abandon your own. They'll applaud your loyalty while your soul grows silent. And the most dangerous place to be is successful at the wrong assignment. Purpose is not ambition. It is not desire. It is not what pays well or looks good on social media. Purpose is the original intent in the mind of the Creator for your life. Before you were formed in your mother's womb, God had a plan for you. That plan is not hidden in a place, it's hidden in a person. It is found in the presence of God, revealed in the quiet places of prayer, and confirmed in the tests of life. You see, when you discover purpose, you don't need motivation. Motivation is external, it fades. But purpose is internal, it fuels you. Purpose wakes you up before the alarm. It keeps you focused when distractions scream. It tells you not that way, this way. Purpose becomes your compass, your filter, your power source. When I realized my purpose, to uncover the kingdom of God and help others discover theirs, I could no longer waste time. I couldn't just say yes to anything. I couldn't just drift through life, because purpose demands priority. And when you know why you were born, everything else becomes either a tool or a threat to your mission. That's why I urge you, don't settle until you know. Don't build a life based on what's popular. Build it on what's purposeful. Because once you find it, the fire starts. And once the fire starts, action is no longer a suggestion, it becomes a necessity. Your feet begin to move. Your heart begins to beat differently. You see time differently. You value people differently. You begin to walk like someone on assignment. You begin to realize, I wasn't born to just take up space. I was born to take territory. So if you're stuck, don't force the action yet. Force yourself into seeking, because action without purpose is just movement without meaning. And life is too short to be busy without being effective. Find your purpose. And when you do, you'll have no choice but to move. Comfort is the silent assassin of destiny. It doesn't announce its presence with destruction. It creeps in with luxury. It comes wrapped in soft routines and quiet compromises. It whispers in your ear, you've done enough for today. When destiny is shouting from within you, you were made for more. Comfort is not evil in itself, but it becomes a prison when you allow it to dictate your potential. I remember seasons in my life when things were going well. Doors were opening, people were clapping, and I felt like I had arrived. But you must understand, applause can be a distraction if it causes you to pause too long. That's the trap of comfort. It convinces you that what's good is good enough, but purpose is never satisfied with just good. Purpose is always calling you to greater. You don't grow on the mountaintop. Growth happens in the valley. Development is born in discomfort. Look at every great man or woman in history. They were never forged in moments of ease. They were shaped in the heat of resistance, in the pressure of obstacles, in the fight against the urge to quit. If you only move when it's easy, you'll never go far. The path to destiny is paved with decisions that feel inconvenient, uncomfortable, and unnatural, but necessary. Comfort breeds complacency, and complacency leads to compromise. Before long, you stop dreaming big, because dreaming big requires effort. You stop praying bold prayers because boldness invites risk. You begin to settle, and slowly the fire that once burned bright in your soul becomes a flicker, barely alive, barely surviving, barely significant. You were not created to coast. You were not made to settle into a life of passive existence. There is something in you that only rises when you are stretched. Your calling is not activated in calm. It is awakened in chaos. Sometimes God will disturb your comfort because he refuses to let you die in a place he only meant to be temporary. He will shake the nest like an eagle does to her young, forcing them to fly because they were never meant to stay grounded. Many of you are waiting for a sign, a miracle, or a breakthrough to push you forward. But let me tell you the truth. You won't find your next level in a miracle. You'll find it in motion. You've been praying for confirmation, but God has already given you conviction, and conviction demands action, not excuses. We must stop romanticizing rest when it becomes a disguise for retreat. There is a time to rest, but don't confuse rest with withdrawal. Comfort without purpose becomes laziness dressed in logic. You'll tell yourself, I'm just being wise, when really you're being fearful. You'll say, I'm waiting on God, when really God is waiting on you to get uncomfortable enough to move. You've got to push yourself. You've got to challenge your own mind. You've got to dare your own spirit to believe again, to dream again, to act again, because everything you're praying for is on the other side of comfort. Your next level of favor, impact, influence, it won't be found in your current routine. It will require a shift, a stretch, a step into what scares you. Comfort says stay here. Destiny says go further. And you must decide which voice you will follow, because one will keep you safe, but the other will make you significant. Discipline is the bridge that carries you from desire to destiny. It is the system that supports your soul when your emotions have clocked out. Because no matter how inspired you feel today, there will come a day when you don't feel anything at all. And on that day, it won't be passion that keeps you going, it will be discipline. We live in a generation that glorifies feeling. We want to be inspired, motivated, energized, but life doesn't always give you that. Purpose won't always feel powerful. Obedience won't always feel rewarding. And calling won't always come with applause. There will be days when getting out of bed feels like a battle, when showing up feels like a sacrifice, when doing what's necessary feels like climbing a mountain with no summit in sight. That's when discipline must take over. Discipline is the internal governor that tells you do it anyway. It's the muscle you develop over time by saying no to what's easy so you can say yes to what's essential. It is the decision to move forward when your body is tired, your mind is cluttered, and your heart is heavy. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It commands you to rise based on what you know. And what you know is that you were not built for average. You were not built to stay stuck. I remember waking up some mornings, especially in my early days of ministry, when everything inside me wanted to go back to sleep. The vision was clear, but the energy was gone. The purpose was alive, but the pressure was real. And I had to make a decision. Let comfort control me, or let discipline carry me. I learned that discipline is a form of worship. It is saying to God, I will show up even when I don't see the result yet. because I trust what you've placed inside of me. Discipline is not glamorous. It doesn't trend. It doesn't get likes or go viral, but it builds legacies. It builds men and women who are not moved by the weather of emotion, but rooted in the soil of commitment. It creates consistency, and consistency creates credibility. People don't follow what you say, they follow what you keep showing up to do. And hear me, discipline is not just about saying no to sin, it's also about saying yes to structure. It's about putting systems in place that support your vision. Some of us don't lack anointing, we lack alignment. You're gifted, but you have no schedule. You have ideas, but no follow through. Discipline is what separates dreamers from doers. It's what takes a good idea and turns it into a life of impact. There's a version of you that's waiting on the other side of your daily decision. Not the big decisions, the daily ones. The decision to read when you'd rather scroll. The decision to practice when no one is watching. The decision to prepare when no one is clapping. That's the kind of person who finishes well. That's the kind of person who multiplies the gift God gave them. So when you don't feel it, do it anyway. When you're tired, show up anyway. When you feel overlooked, stay faithful anyway. Because discipline doesn't reward you immediately, but it always rewards you eventually. And by the time others see the fruit, God will already have seen your root. You don't rise to the level of your intention, you rise to the level of your discipline. Faith without movement is futile. It is empty, powerless, and ineffective. Faith is not a concept to be admired, it is a force to be activated. Too many people sit in churches, attend conferences, read books, and declare bold affirmations, yet remain stagnant. Not because they lack belief, but because they lack motion. They believe in what God can do, but they refuse to partner with Him in what He wants to do through them. Faith is not a substitute for work. It is a call to it. Real faith moves. Real faith builds. Real faith steps out of the boat and walks into the storm. If you say you have faith, but you're still sitting, still waiting, still debating, what you have is not faith. It's fantasy dressed in spiritual language. Faith doesn't ask for guarantees. It doesn't require a safety net. It simply asks one thing. Will you trust God enough to move even when you don't have all the answers? In the scriptures, every act of God's power was triggered by human action. The Red Sea parted after Moses stretched out his rod. The walls of Jericho fell after Israel marched. The woman with the issue of blood was healed not because she believed from afar, but because she pressed through the crowd and touched the hem of his garment. Even Jesus told the man with the withered hand, stretch it out. Movement, action, faith in motion. You see, the problem isn't that you don't have enough faith. The problem is that you haven't used the faith you already have. Faith is like a muscle. It grows when it's exercised. But many people let it atrophy. They wait for perfect conditions when faith was never meant to function in perfection. It thrives in uncertainty. It thrives when the numbers don't add up, when the doors look closed, when logic says no, but your spirit says go. There were times in my life when I had no clear map, no promise of provision, just a word from God and a vision burning in my belly. And in those moments, I learned that God responds to faith that moves, not faith that waits for everything to be clear, not faith that requires a 5-year plan, but faith that says, if you said it, I will step. Even if I don't see where the ground is yet. You don't need more confirmation, you need more courage. You've been praying, fasting, seeking counsel, asking for signs, but could it be that the sign you're waiting for is the one you're supposed to be? Could it be that God is waiting on you to move so He can release what's next? Because heaven backs motion. God does not reward passivity, He rewards obedience. And obedience often looks foolish. Noah looked foolish building an ark in the middle of a drought. Abraham looked foolish leaving everything familiar for a land he'd never seen. Peter looked foolish stepping out onto the water. But faith will always make you look foolish before it proves you wise. That's the test. Will you move when it makes no sense to others, but perfect sense in your spirit? Stop sitting on what God gave you. Stop waiting for the conditions to be favorable. Favor doesn't always look like ease. Sometimes it looks like opposition. Your grace to overcome. Move. Move in fear. Move in faith. Move with tears in your eyes, because what you refuse to act on, someone else will. Purpose does not wait forever. Faith without works is dead. Not sleeping, not resting, dead. And dead faith produces dead dreams. But living faith, it produces nations, movements, legacies. So ask yourself, is my faith alive enough to move my feet? Because until you move, you're not in faith, you're just in thought. Legacy demands urgency. It doesn't give you the luxury of delay. It doesn't allow you to waste days wondering, or wavering. When you truly understand that your life is not just about you, but about everyone connected to your obedience, your entire posture changes. You stop living casually and start living intentionally. You stop measuring your time by comfort and begin measuring it by impact. There is a generation waiting not for your perfection, but for your participation. They are waiting for your voice, your vision, your courage, your obedience. There are people who will never discover who they are until you step into who you are. That's the weight of legacy. It's not built on intention, it's built on execution. And execution doesn't happen later, it happens now. You don't have time to wait until you feel ready. Readiness is not a requirement for responsibility. Some of the greatest moves of God in my life happened before I felt qualified. I didn't feel prepared. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel confident. But I understood the assignment. And legacy doesn't ask how you feel. It asks if you're willing. Because every moment you hesitate, someone else remains bound. Every time you delay, someone else's answer is postponed. We must realize that delayed action can be just as dangerous as disobedience. It is possible to miss divine timing. Yes, God is merciful, and yes, He restores. But there are windows in the Spirit that open and close. There are seasons that shift. There are moments that demand movement. And when you allow fear or fatigue or the pursuit of comfort to slow you down, you can miss the opportunity to shift history. You weren't placed on earth just to make a living. You were sent here to make a difference. There's a divine assignment with your name on it. And every day you remain passive is a day you rob your future of its inheritance. Legacy is not what you leave behind. It's what you build while you're still here. It's the lives you touch, the truth you speak, the bold steps you take that create ripples far beyond your lifetime. Think about it. Abraham moved when God said go, and today we call him the father of faith. Esther stepped forward when the risk was death, and an entire nation was saved. Jesus knew his time was short, and he spent every day pouring, teaching, healing, building, walking toward the cross with full awareness that his mission was greater than the moment. They all lived with urgency, the kind that refuses to waste what heaven entrusted. Some of us are waiting for the right season, but your season began the moment God spoke. Your season started when the dream hit your spirit, when the burden wouldn't let you sleep, when the idea refused to die. That was your green light. And every moment you stall, you risk letting your life be ruled by someday. But someday is a myth. Legacy doesn't live in someday. It's forged in today. In decisions made when no one is watching. In discipline honored when no one is clapping. In steps taken when the path isn't clear but the call is undeniable. You don't know how much time you have left, but you do know you have now. And now is sacred. Now is where destiny begins. Now is where legacy is formed. So don't waste your now scrolling, doubting, hesitating, or retreating. Someone's healing is on the other side of your yes. Someone's calling is waiting on your courage. Someone's breakthrough is tied to your boldness. The world doesn't need more people thinking about what they might do. It needs people willing to move now. Because legacy doesn't respond to delay, it responds to urgency.